Hey there, thanks for using the Stripe Invoice Installments app. Let's go ahead and see how we can use this app. Now, there are two ways to use this. One is if you're creating a new invoice, which we'll walk through shortly, and the second is if you have a pre-existing invoice or you don't want to show our invoice payment link on the invoice itself. Let's get started with the first method. First off, you create the invoice as you usually would in the Stripe editor. We'll go ahead and send this to a test customer. Now, the important thing to note here in terms of where this differs from how you might send this otherwise. The first is it's important to request the payment due whenever you want your payment plan to end. You do not auto-charge customers at this step. We'll walk through how to do that next. Secondly, instead of sending the invoice at this stage, you exit out of the editor so that you're now in the draft for that particular invoice, and you can launch our app at this stage. Over here, the app will give you options for how you want to break this invoice up into smaller due dates, into smaller amounts due over different times. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and finalize the invoice. This will now send the Stripe invoice to your customer from Stripe's email address with a link to pay in installments. This is what it will look like. So you'll see that they'll receive this in the memo field. If you have memo text, that will also be copied over in the memo field. And then you have two options here. You could share this with the customer, and so we'll open that up and see what it looks like. And you can see that they now have a portal to make individual payments or set a payment method for autocharge. Or you could set this on behalf of them by following the autocharge options button, where you'll find a similar portal. And if you've collected consent from your customer, you can go ahead and set up autocharge for them here. That's for the first way in which you could use this app. The second way is if you have pre-existing invoices, let's take one over here, that have already been finalized and sent to your customer, you can then go ahead and set a payment plan on this particular invoice. So we see something similar here in terms of the options to be able to split it up. The difference here is once you set the payment plan, the customer will not receive the link to pay in the memo field. And so you will have to manually share it with the customer instead of them receiving it via email. You might also want to do this if you don't want the link to appear in your memo field for any reason. Thanks for using our app, and let us know if you have any questions.